of the defendant on June 10th, 2021, where did that take place?
It was in Senior Special Agent David Owens' patrol vehicle in the yard of Mr. John Marvin Murdaugh's hunting lodge.
Your Honor, this time we're going to play Exhibit 243, the second interview of Alex Murdaugh.
Can I take this call really
Yes,
quick?
sir. Go right
This is
ahead.
my sister-in-law.
Yes, go ahead.
And she's trying to... Hey, Mary. Okay, Lynn, I'm meeting with Mary, when I'm meeting with law enforcement, so I'll call you in just a minute.
Thanks. I don't have a card.
That's fine.
Did Chelsea call you? Okay. Okay. Can you let Chelsea know and then make her run Lynn down? Okay, well, tell her to go get Christy to find Lynn. Get any one of the secretaries to find her. All right. Thank you. Sorry to put that on you. Bye. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
17.
One thing I want to do before we start is I'd like to get a cell phone exam so we can just corroborate everything. Let me get a consent, and I got a guy here that's going to do it.
Are you going to download it now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
So I'll get to keep my phone?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Yeah.
Who was the guy that was there to download Alex's phone? Do you remember?
Dylan Hightower with 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office.
He works with the 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office.
That is correct.
At that point in time, that was the prosecutor's office in charge of the case.
That is correct.
It was not until August that the case got sent to the Attorney General's office.
That is correct.
How much attorney-client privilege stuff is on there?
A lot.
Okay. We do have a taint attorney that's going to examine it before we ever do.
What is a tank attorney?
A taint attorney, they look at somebody who's not affiliated with the case that makes sure that there's... Jim, do you know?
Yeah,
Can
sure.
you explain it better?
Sure. And I mean, it's a privileged attorney that doesn't, if there is attorney-client privilege information, it's redacted or extracted by the taint attorney.
How do they know who's the client?
I know.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Whatever
yeah,
it is.
yeah.
You know what?
But
If y'all get some
but
attorney-client
whoever
stuff.
that is, you know, would go through me and then
So,
we'd work through it.
signature.
Just write your name here.
So, Alec, I've had situations where they
It's not a
say,
big deal.
give me a list of all his clients or something like that, you know. But
I'll fill out the rest.
you know, I think the big thing, Joe, is, I mean, when you download that phone, I don't know if emails come with it or not, because that's probably where all this attorney-client privilege stuff.
And we can actually isolate the emails.
Yeah, that's probably the thing. So you don't text clients, but
No, I do. I text a lot of clients.
okay.
I'm not a big emailer.
Is that at 11 or 12, or do you know?
I do not know.
I can tell you that the case for you if you want me to. You look at the back, it should have a number.
Give me a shout later.
And what was your date of birth again, Mr. Murdaugh?
2768.
10. And the last word of the social.
Don't get old.
Seven
You got the light?
7483. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Doesn't say anything on it.
Most of the new ones don't.
Probably have to open it up.
Oh, well, it's got.
Jim, you want to witness that for me, please?
And if you got a passcode or
My passcode is,
so write it on there.
start at the bottom 9, go up 9669.
9669.
Yes, sir.
All right, let me run this till. I'll be right back.
Where are you from, sir?
I'm actually from Barnwell.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, sir.
I got some cousins in Barnwell.
Got people in Barnwell too. Mixon.
Mixing oil?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my.
You kin to Dickie Mixon?
I don't know. You know that Mixon oil was my Uncle Ray Mixon and his son Teddy and Bobby and a bunch of them. Then
You know,
Freddie Mixon. He was.
Oh, I knew Freddie Mixon very well.
And his wife Etta and Jill.
Mr. Freddie goes to Elko Church.
Yeah. Not anymore. He did.
I mean, he went
Well, he
with,
did.
yeah.
Well, you know, I was at his funeral. He had a tiger paw casket at the funeral. He's a big Clemson guy.
you know Big John Bedingfield, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
I know John.
That's my cousin.
Okay.
Who was he just talking about right there?
John Bedingfield, the DNR officer, who is also the one that built the AR-style rifles, 300 blackout for him.
In Sweet Caroline.
John's son and my son are the same age. They were in school together.
So, did you grow up in Barnwell?
Yes, sir.
All right, sir. So he's got it and he's taking care of that.
But I get it back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, sir. So when we spoke the other night, I got kind of a basic overview,
Yes, sir.
and it was pretty traumatic.
That's okay.
yeah,
I know
so,
you
yeah.
need to ask me. You ask me what you need to.
So I want you to, let's start Monday morning and take me through your day.
Monday morning, you know, did I do Monday morning? My wife and my older son had gone to the baseball games that weekend. You know, I really can't remember what I did Monday. I know I went to work,
Okay.
but you know, I think I was dragging a little bit from the weekend, but I went to work. I usually mess around on my farm, and then I go to work. I was at work.
Okay.
You know,
Were you at the office in Hampton, or?
yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So I was at my office in Hampton. You know, I mean, I was just at my office doing,
Legal work.
yes, sir. I'm sure I can go back and probably recreate some specifics if you need me to, but I can't like sit here and recall on the top of my head exactly what I was working on. I know one thing I was working on was we had some big motions coming up in a Dominion Energy case. I was getting ready for those, and I was getting ready for some motions. I'm a defendant in a civil case involving my son. I told you about the boat wreck.
Yes, sir.
And there were some motions coming up in that on Thursday, and I was mostly just getting ready for those things. And then
This is in response to a question as to what he was doing the day of the murders.
That is correct, yes, sir.
And he said he was working on some motions in the Dominion Energy case, and then also where he's personally a defendant in the boat case. Is that correct?
That is correct,
And that's
yes,
what
sir.
he said he was doing the day of the murders. Is that right?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Thank you.
other junk.
What time did you leave the house to go to the office?
I'm not sure.
Who all was at the house when you left?
To go to my office
Yes,
that
sir.
morning,
Or when you got up, who was at the house?
I'm sure my wife was. And I can't remember if Blanca had made it out there yet or not.
And who was Blanca?
Blanca is our housekeeper.
Okay. Okay.
And she comes different. She doesn't have set hours, but she comes most days. She'll be able to tell you if I was there when she left or not.
Okay.
I can't remember.
And so you went to the office. You did, some motions. What time did you leave the office?
Real quick, what was the name of the housekeeper?
Blanca,
Yeah.
Yeah, when she left or not.
Okay.
I can't remember.
And so you went to the office. You did, some motions. What time did you leave the office?
I left a little bit earlier than normal because my son Paul was coming home.
Okay.
Because he had not been with us during the weekend, and he was coming home. We were going to replant some sunflowers the next day.
Okay.
And so he was calibrating, doing and getting everything ready. So he got home a little early. I left a little early, so he and I could knock around, and we knocked around for, you know, just doing things we like to do out there. You know, we're riding around looking at food plots, looking, you know, looking for hogs, a little bit of target shooting, just bullshit.
Yeah. You said Paul wasn't with you over the weekend. Where does he live with you at the house on Moselle?
Well, I mean, that's his home, but
Yeah.
he has an apartment in Columbia.
Okay.
And he goes to Charleston a lot of weekends with his buddies.
Okay.
And he had been in Charleston for the weekend.
Okay.
And then Paul works for my brother John, that's out here. You met John.
Yes, sir.
So Paul works for him. So Paul decided to he went to spend the night with my brother, his Uncle John. They were very, very close.
Okay.
Sunday night.
Okay.
And then he worked for John Marvin, and he came home Monday afternoon.
Okay.
Just real quick, Alex Murdaugh told you that he left work a little earlier than normal, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's what he said.
And one of the things he told you is they were riding around looking for hogs, is that right?
Looking for hogs, yes, sir.
Do people often use 300 blackout to shoot hogs?
They do.
About roughly what time in the afternoon?
You know, I would think it'd be somewhere in the 5 o'clock range, a little bit. It was broad daylight when we were, it wasn't dusk, dark, or late.
Okay.
You know, and we rode, you know, we just rode around. We rode around our dove field looking at how the corn was doing. He and I had planted corn in the dove field, and he planted the corn in the duck pond, and he was, you know, showing me how much better his corn was doing than mine was. And we rode around the duck pond. I mean, we just, you know, we rode the property.
Yes, sir.
You know, we rode the property. Then, you know, I mean, we rode around so much. We just rode.
Okay.
Probably. It was a good little while. It was more than 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Okay. And, you know, was it 2 hours? I don't know. I'd say it was more than an hour probably.
Really wasn't keeping track of time?
And it wasn't, you know, it wasn't getting dark. Mama wasn't home yet. She had gone to a doctor's appointment. So, you know.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, target practice, what y'all shooting?
Just a little bottle. You give me what gun?
Yeah.
A 22 Magnum.
Rat shot?
I think. No, it wasn't rat shot. I think he shot 2 times and I shot 1 time.
Okay.
He told you that they shot just a couple of times, the target shooting at a bottle 22 Magnum, is that correct?
That is correct.
And is 22 Magnum, is that a very small round, or is that a much larger rifle round like 300 blackout?
That is a small round.
22 is about as small as it comes.
They make them smaller, but it is small.
Okay.
So after y'all got finished riding around, try to take me through the rest of the evening.
All right. You know, at some point we were all back at the house together. Maggie had gotten home, and, you know, we sat down, we ate supper, which we usually eat supper together. The one thing I remember, I don't know how much detail y'all want, so if I start talking about something that you don't need, just tell me and I'll move to something else.
The more detail, the better, sir.
So Paul has been having high blood pressure, and his mama was worried sick about it. So we were actually, you know, this was a direct thing getting him. He doesn't like to go to doctors. making him go get his blood pressure checked. His feet had swollen up recently.
Wow.
So, you know, it was a big, huge deal.
Okay.
You know, we hung around the house for a little while. I know that Maggie went to the kennels. I don't know exactly where Paul went, but he left the house too.
Okay. How did Maggie get down to the kennels?
I don't know exactly, but on normal occasions, she would drive a buggy, drive a four-wheeler, or very common for her to walk.
Okay. How about Paul?
Paul wasn't much of a walker, but he would use all of the others.
Okay.
But it could be anyway,
Okay.
you know? I don't know exactly. I wish I could help you with that.
So they left and went down to the kennels.
Well, Maggie went to go to the kennels.
Okay. Paul left.
And I'm assuming, Paul left
Okay.
because of, you know,
Gotcha.
what happened. I mean, I'm assuming Paul
Yeah.
went to the kennels.
Okay. And what did you do once Maggie and Paul left?
I stayed in the house.
What did he tell you he did after Maggie and Paul went to the kennels?
He stayed in the house.
I mean, I'm assuming Paul
Yeah.
went to the kennels.
Okay. And what did you do once Maggie and Paul left?
I stayed in the house.
Okay.
And I was watching TV, looking at my phone, and I actually fell asleep on the couch.
Okay. And what time did you?
You know, I
What
don't
time
know
did you wake up?
exactly what time I woke up, but when y'all get my phone, you know, I think one of the first things I did when I got up was call Maggie because I was going to my mom's. And I know I texted her because I checked my phone. And what time did we say the text was, Jim? Like 9:06.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, I got it written down from the other night.
I showed you the other night,
yes,
didn't I?
Yes, sir. I got this.
So, you know, I texted her, so I called her just before that. And, I mean, she didn't answer at that point. And I left to go to my mom's.
Okay.
Y'all will just have to look. I'm not sure if I called Paul
Well,
or not.
and that's why we're getting the phone so we can nail down the times and
Right.
and everything.
So I left, I drove. Well, you know, I'm gonna tell y'all this, even though I think it's kind of crazy. You know, I was certain that I heard them pull up. I mean, I was positive that I heard, and people don't just come out there. You know, we don't get like passed through. I was certain that I heard them pull up, but they didn't.
Okay.
The defendant told you that he thought he heard somebody pull up, but they didn't?
Yes, sir.
And that was before, according to him, he left the house. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Well, if you heard something pull up, what did it sound like?
You know, I can't tell you what it sounded like. I just know that I thought that my wife had pulled up, or that Paul had pulled up.
Would it have been the buggy that she normally drives, or would it be a car?
No, I had the impression that a car pulled up.
Okay.
You know, and
had you woken up by that time, but hadn't left for your mom's?
yep,
Okay.
but it wasn't much time in between there because I left pretty damn close. It wasn't much time between me waking up and me leaving the house.
Okay.
And when I went outside, you know, there's a wild cat that lives around that house.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it was the cat that ran from my car, but, you know, I never had the impression it was a person, but there was something,
Okay.
you know.
At this point, the defendant tells you something about a wildcat running. He wasn't sure if it was a person.
Yes, sir. That's what he says.
But I really don't think, you know, I'm just throwing that out there
I got
because it was in my mind.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
All right.
That's totally fine.
I left. I drove to my mom's. I checked on
And
my
she
mom.
lives right out here, correct?
She lives at Alameda.
Okay.
Checked on my mom. Talked with Shelly for a few minutes. You know,
Shelly is
the caregiver.
okay.
And You know, I know that I called some people on the way there. I know I returned a call from my brother John. I know that I called Chris Wilson. I know that I talked to Buster. So I made a few phone calls.
Okay.
And
Where was Buster?
Buster was in Rock Hill.
Okay. Is that where he lives, or?
No, he lives in Columbia, but he just started a new job. He's going back to law school in January.
Okay.
So he's working a little part-time job with Wild Wings
Okay.
through January.
Gotcha.
You know, just kind of killing time. And he was in, his girlfriend lives in Rock Hill. She's studying for the bar exam, so he had to be in Charlotte, so he was staying with her in Rock Hill, her and her mom.
Okay.
Can I open the store?
Yes, sir. So,
All right, so where are we? All right, so then I
you
left
your
my
mom's
mom's.
and making phone calls.
I left my mom's, and I went back home. I got to the house. I went inside. Nobody was there. I got in the car. I went back to the kennels, and, you know.
And when you went back to the kennels, besides Maggie and Paul, did you see anybody, any cars?
I didn't see
Take
anything
your
right
time.
then, no, sir.
Take your time.
You know, I saw Maggie and I saw Paul laying down. I knew, you know, I didn't know, you know, I knew it was bad. I went over there and, you know, I saw it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I called 911.
Okay. And what made you decide to go back to the house and get a gun?
I just think the whole scene had me freaked out.
Okay. Did you take your car back up there, or did you run up there?
No, I drove.
Okay.
How did Alex Murdaugh say he went back to the house after finding Maggie and Paul to supposedly go get a gun?
He drove.
And of course, the shotgun that we have is the one you brought back.
They were asking me earlier. I'm not sure which one it was.
Jim, it was a 12 gauge. I know, yeah, Ronnie had the question if it was 12 or 20. It was a 12 gauge.
And it was that camo, though, right?
Yes, sir. I think it was the 12 camo Benelli.
Benelli. I think so.
But that's about all you got, Benelli out there, right?
And we talked about this a little bit the other night too. I know Paul had been getting some threats and getting some being assaulted from, you know, the boat. Who stands out in your mind, besides the boat incident? Who stands out in your mind that would want to come after Paul and or Maggie?
I mean, sir, I can't think of anybody who would want to go to that extreme. You know, I mean, he got a bunch of threats, mostly from, you know, I mean, I have no idea.
How would he receive most of those threats?
What do you mean?
I mean, would people call and hang up on him, or send him text,
no,
or
it wasn't
social
so much
media?
that. No, it was mostly like in-person confrontations, are the ones that I learned about. Now, I suspect his friends can probably tell you about more, because I doubt Paul told me about all of them.
Okay.
But I knew about a lot of them. You know, there were a lot of times where people would come up to him and he'd be like, they'd say something about, you know, you gonna tell me who was driving that boat, or you little piece of shit, were you driving that boat? You know, stuff like that.
Okay. Who did he go to Charleston with on the boat that weekend?
I don't know exactly. I know that, I mean, I know who his buddies are, but specifically who was on the boat with him, I'm not sure.
Okay.
You know, but I can give you a list of names of who it probably was.
So, Joe, I don't know if you want me to weigh in here. You may want to put your pens down, but a good buddy of mine's son went fishing with me yesterday out in the ocean, and he has a best friend, and his dad's name is Lee Chapman. But
Yeah.
the kid said, Lee's son said that Paul slept on his couch in Charleston 2 nights before he was murdered. So it's Lee Chapman's son. I can get his name. You probably know Lee's son. I don't, but he goes to the Citadel. But that's where Paul was.
Okay.
And I learned that yesterday out on the fishing trip, which is I have to stand.
Cool. I mean, yes, sir. If you could get me Lee Chapman's son's contact information.
There was a bunch of Chapman cousins that Paul was very close with. The closest one being Wills Chapman and Frank Chapman.
Wills Chapman is his name, but I'll get your number for
And
you.
that
Frank is John Chapman's son, and Wills is Lee Chapman's son.
Yeah,
okay.
that's where you want.
And those boys are, they're just really good boys and friends of Paul's.
And one of them is Wills with an S, right?
That's
Correct.
right.
And Wills goes to the Citadel. That you understand?
No, he's graduated from
He
the Citadel.
graduated from. Okay.
And Frank was in the Citadel, but I think he had some kind of,
Okay.
academic troubles. But I'm telling you now, I can promise you that, those boys love Paul.
Well,
it's absolutely.
Well, and I
None
just
of
want
them.
to talk to him about their weekend and
Sure.
Yeah.
I can tell you this, in riding around with Paul, he was his normal, bright, he was a really great kid.
So, being a dad myself, what was the biggest issue you had with Paul when you had to call him down and scold him or correct him? What was the biggest issue you had with Paul?
Irresponsibility. He was ADHD. He was bad about jumping from, and he had so many wonderful qualities now, but he was bad about jumping from, he'd start this, maybe not quite finish it, do something else. And, you'll find out from his friends, he had clothes strung out all over the state. He did that with clothes, he did that with guns, he did that with my boats.
Lost.
So,
He lost what?
He would misplace stuff or just,
Okay.
leave stuff behind, right?
yes, everywhere. He would go off for the weekend. Sometimes he wouldn't pack clothes because he's got clothes in somebody's house. Paul was one, he wouldn't understand how you go out, you and a girl go out on a date. He liked the crowd.
And who was his girlfriend?
He didn't have a girlfriend right now.
Okay.
Alex, last time I talked to him was like 2 weeks ago, although we texted. He was going to Greenville for the weekend. He had friends up there, girlfriend up there?
No, we had a family thing in Greenville, and he came up, Paul didn't play golf. He came up on Friday and stayed Saturday, and then he left to go to Charleston, and we stayed another day to play golf.
Okay. I thought maybe he had a girl.
My niece on my wife's side is having a baby, and we went up for that.
And you said on Monday Maggie had a doctor's appointment in Charleston. And I know we talked about this on Monday. Do you recall the doctor that she went to or for what the reason was?
Maggie had a couple little things going on, and I personally think she was going to see Dr. Gordine, but I'm not positive.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's who it was. I can find out specifically though. Her mom will know.
Okay. And you said she and Buster were at the ball games all weekend?
Yes.
Was that
With me,
with you? And what ball games?
Carolina Regional.
They didn't make it past those, did they?
No.
Okay. Paul was in Charleston, so he didn't hang out with y'all that weekend.
No, sir.
And what time did Maggie get back home Monday night?
It was after Paul and I had gone. She was not there when Paul and I left to go mess around.
Okay.
So, you know, it was sometime after that. So there was a point when, you know, she got back, we got back.
When y'all got back from riding around and messing around on the farm, was she home or?
Yes.
Okay.
The defendant told you that Maggie was home when they got back from riding around the property. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
So, and I don't believe she'd been home too long when.
And what's her car? That Mercedes that's out there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And you said Bianca had prepared dinner that night.
Yeah, Blanca cooked dinner that night because Maggie cooks, you know, when the boys are home, or she tries to really for me, but she wasn't going to be there that day, so she had Blanca cook a meal.
How is your relationship with Maggie?
Very good. As good as it could possibly be. I mean, you know, we had our issues, but wonderful.
And I'm just trying to understand the family dynamic.
I understand you got to do what you got to do, I promise.
What was y'all's biggest arguments? What your biggest the things that y'all would argue about the most, what would they be over?
I mean, we really didn't argue, but I'd say the only thing that caused any friction between us is she was always wanting us to go, and I love her in-laws. I mean, they're wonderful people. I love them to death. She was always wanting to go there, stay there a little longer than me and the boys wanted to stay. That was really, and it really, you know, she'd get ticked off.
Yeah.
You mean her family? You said her in-laws. You mean her family?
I mean her family.
Your in-laws,
I mean, we really didn't argue about much. We didn't have much to argue about. I mean, I'm sure there was an occasional thing that came up that we argued about, but I can't tell you what it is. I can't think of it.
Yeah. Take your time. Go. Tissues.
I'm sorry.
You good?
I mean, she was a wonderful girl and a wonderful wife. And she was a great mother. She, you know, she didn't work. And she always said it was her job since she was privileged enough not to work. She was going to make sure she took care of me and the boys. And I mean, she did everything. She did absolutely everything. I'm sorry.
No, you have every right to do that.
I'm good. You go ahead.
That afternoon, or during the time you and Paul were riding.
Yes, sir.
Did y'all go up to around the kennels or anything? Did y'all do anything up toward the kennels?
I'm sure we did. You know, that's our main shop is, you know, right there. But, you know, I mean, we're normally in there for long times tinkering, and I will say that particular day, we did not tinker around there a bunch, you know?
Okay.
When y'all rode around the farm, what were y'all in the truck or?
Well, we were actually in two trucks. We rode in one truck, and then we rode in another truck some. One was the black one, and one was the white one that was out there.
Okay. Mr. Alec,
Yes, sir.
you know, the other day when we were there, we came in and we were talking with John a little bit.
Sure.
About, and you obviously got a lot of, I say a lot, you said 20 and 25 weapons.
Yes, sir.
And you know kind of what you got as far as any kind of, what kind of weapons you may have?
I'm pretty much, yes, sir.
I know you might not remember them all, but can you kind of run down what you, for us, kind of what you had, what you got, you know, right there?
That I own or that's in there now?
That you own.
All right. That I
Or that's
own.
in there, you know, or wherever they're at.
And, you know, I mean, Paul has guns scattered all over the place. So, you know, some of our guns aren't there. But, so you want to know all of them, or you want to know what I think is in my house? Or what was in my house on Monday?
Yeah, what was in your house? Let's start with what was in your house on Monday.
Okay, whatever was in my house on Monday is exactly what was there, minus one shotgun that y'all got.
Okay.
No guns have been moved for, you know, there hadn't been any guns moved in and out of there other than when Paul was home. You know, when Paul came home, he would ride around and shoot hogs a lot.
What would he shoot hogs with?
You know,
Most of the time?
I mean, primarily he would shoot them with Buster's gun. Because
Okay.
Paul had a 300 Blackout.
Okay.
And it got, you know, he says it got stolen. You know, and it's been gone for some time.